Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. We are into 2024, if you can believe it. I'm Heather Lockett, and we're having lasting conversations. Today, I have the most amazing person, Uli Schackmann, with us. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
I did pronounce your name correctly. Is that right? Good.
Yes.
Well, we met just last night at a really cute place called Memory Trees in Lake Worth, Florida. And it's very serendipitous. And we were connected by a mutual friend, Jill Carlin Butler, who has been on the show a couple of times. And she was so eager to put us together because I think our journeys intertwine and intersect in many ways. And one of your main things that you have been up to is for your passion and research for AIDS awareness, and the cure. And what happened with that is that you were brought down the road, a very long road, a 6,000-mile road, a few years back, 6 months and 6,000 miles riding a bicycle across the country.
That's correct.
And to top that, you went with your little dog, Jackson. So we're here to hear about Uli's journey. And you put everything together in a really beautiful book called Uli's Journey, Angels Along the Way. I love that title because this will get into the meat of what we're here to talk about today, the angels along the way, the angels that have our back, and who help us through very odd and trying times and then what can become magical times. So welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted.
Oh,
and
this
it was
is so
wonderful
fun
to meet you last night.
Thank you. There was you did a little bit of a reading. You took some questions from people and that we'll get into a whole nother part of the show, and hopefully we can have those folks in too. They have a whole beautiful story. They make musical instruments and leatherworks, and they work for a whole nother charitable organization. So I just love how everything ties together, and what a wonderful way to kick off the new year. I know people will be listening or watching on YouTube anytime in the ethers, but right now know that we are just about to hit the New Year's Eve 23 into 2024. And I think one of the things that on personal levels that you and I had mentioned, and even Janine here in the studio, is there's something else that's calling us, something else more that's calling us into this new year. So we're going to switch it up and start with your journey. What was calling you back in 2017, or perhaps it even started before 2017, that you said, I'm going to ride a bike from Alaska to Key West, Florida?
It started way back in 1997. I worked for an organization, a bicycle ride. They organized a bike ride from Orlando to Miami. It was a 3-day bicycle ride. And during the process, there was a whole city, a mobile city that was moving along the road. And what I was so present to and everybody else was the love that was present, the care, the nurturing. And it was a very healing and a beautiful environment. I was not affected directly by HIV/AIDS. But the environment really, and the connection I shared with the riders, I was a rider rep or a coach and supported the riders. And that got me started with the ride.
And so at that time, it was a different group that was doing awareness and fundraising for AIDS at that time.
Yes.
And so you got the hook, so to speak.
I got
your heart.
And the community, yes.
And the community, which is very caring. And I'm going to go ahead and say part of the connection with that is, as we know, that has been for decades at this point, a horrible scenario, this virus that appeared and nobody really knew what it was. And then there was all kinds of assumptions and the storylines with that. And for me personally, I was working in Boston at the time in the 80s, and the lovely gentlemen that I worked with, they were dropping like flies. It was horrible. It was a very horrible time. And so the whole AIDS awareness and campaign, if you will, was been very near and dear to my heart. And we'll get to where your flag was, because you rode your bike with a flag that just got donated to the World AIDS Organization. And I have a panel that I made for one of my coworkers that's part of the quilt. So this all kind of intertwines together, the people and places that go to our heart.
Right.
And then with the medicine and the research and how can we help each other and our fellow human beings. So the part that you were talking about, I think is for 97 was very, very key, because in 87, in the 80s, there was a lot of people that didn't feel connected and weren't getting that nurturing that you're now talking about. So yeah, there's a lot on that plate.
Well, the nurturing came from the community,
Yes.
the Mobile City, the right.
Yeah. And the
And
community
it was-
within, you
right.
banded together
Right.
to help each other.
Right.
Right.
And building the friendship.
Yeah.
And so the same writers came each year. So it was like a reunion. Every year you came to the ride, even though it was different organizers, you had your group of people that you would see and support each other and share the experience together.
Right.
And also the stigma that was attached to people who have HIV/AIDS. Even not even today, it's still a stigma, and you're working on to eliminate that stigma for the people who live with HIV/AIDS. You didn't find that during the ride, and you really could be yourself.
Everyone could just be part of a family.
Right.
That's so beautiful. I want to jump in. So your book is absolutely gorgeous. I'm just holding it up right here, and we're going to introduce photos along the way. Start us with your prologue. And when I read that this morning, I was really called to say, let's just start there up until the first part of page 12, because it feels like it sets the whole tone of the beginning and some of the nuggets of your story. So just read us some passage from your prologue.
May 12, 2017, Fairbanks, Alaska. The repair shop called to say that my bicycle was finally ready. I picked it up and began the ride to the hostel. Once I arrived, I had breakfast and talked to some of the other people staying there before I took off. Because of the flat terrain, the riding was easier than before. Whenever I did come to an incline, I got off and walked the bike. With the trailer attached, it was too heavy for me to pedal uphill. Besides, my knee hurt, and I already felt burned out. Outside of Fairbanks, I rode past a town called North Pole and stopped to take pictures with Santa Claus and give him my Christmas wish list. Later, back on the road, I pedaled for a while, then got off again and pushed the bicycle up a steep incline, and that plateaued at the top. Jackson and I stopped to catch our breath, and I thought about my journey so far. Climbing the steep inclines was entirely different from my training rides in Florida. Riding was beyond strenuous. I had never before experienced such a challenge or such a demand on my body and psyche. Still, the beauty, the immense splendor, and the sheer aloneness consumed me and filled me with such gratitude. I was about to take off again when suddenly a giant grizzly bear appeared 70 to 80 feet up ahead, walking away from us. She had one heck of a big behind, and a cub followed her right side. Uncupping my bear spray, I looked at Jackson and put my finger over my lips. The bear terrified me, and I started trembling, but Jackson remained calm. The grizzly bear moved slowly forward, never turning to look back at us. She ambled slightly to the right and up a little embankment, disappearing momentarily behind a cluster of trees. When she emerged again, I saw that she had not only one, but two small cubs. Fear paralyzed me.
I love that. I just love that we're going to start there because, again, I can say from my own personal, I have a road trip in a car. I haven't done the next level of literally camping and being out in the land. And fear can paralyze me. It can paralyze all of us in so many different ways. So start us there in terms of the fear, overcoming it or working through it. And I think even with your route, you had mentioned about rattlesnakes.
Yes.
And maybe some of the critters you could deal with bear, but you didn't want to deal with the snakes. And so let's just roll right through the rest of your journey here. How this came to be and what parts of this journey really, I know the whole thing filled you up, but let's get past the fear part. If there is even such a thing, I'll say
Right.
that. Maybe there is no such thing.
It's not really overcoming. I think it's a deeper understanding of a respect for it.
Mm-hmm.
I still fear bears if I'm in their territory. But what it allowed me was looking at my fears, what stopped me in my life, and to overcome that, and not to allow it to stop me. And I had to push through it. I went out in the woods hiking with Jackson when we got stuck.
And meanwhile, and Jackson, we may not have mentioned it. He's not a big old dog. This was your
little...
little
20-pound little Havanese.
Yes. Yeah. So just an adorable little dog. But was he kind of chill? You were saying that you could just speak in your own language and he wasn't freaking out about running after a bear.
No, not a deer, nothing. So he was very well behaved. He is a certified service dog.
Okay.
So he's working for me and he's very well trained. So I'm very fortunate and had the best travel companion that I could get.
Nice.
But coming back to the fear, it showed me first of all, what slows me down and stops me in life, and how I allow that or other people's fear to stop me from stepping forward and do what I need to do. And that also allowed me to feel for a moment what it must be like to live with AIDS or live with depression or live with cancer, something that is terminal, where you're slowed down by the illness, by whatever you're facing. And for a moment, I got to experience that. And had great empathy for people who have the experience and more compassion for it. But overcoming that fear, I did not overcome it. I still have fears when I go out hiking with Jackson. I'm in St. Augustine, we have wild boar or hogs, gators, Florida. So I'm very, very attentive and watch for wildlife.
Well, I think that's probably good because we have our primal instinct that says bears want to do certain things, or gators, or then snakes are snakes. They're going to do a certain thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you had, this is 2017, there had been technologies and GPSs and stuff, but did you choose to keep it very simple and you didn't? Someone asked last night, did you have checkpoints? Did you do this? How much was this in planning and letting go and allowing?
A lot was of letting go, trusting and surrendering to whatever happens. The journey was planned east and south. I really didn't know which way to go. My phone didn't work most of the time in Alaska. I didn't have Wi-Fi, or I didn't have electricity to charge the phone. In Canada, I had no phone service unless I stopped in a restaurant, hotel, and I used their Wi-Fi. But other than this, I couldn't use the phone. I had to go and get some map. I thought I would go this way, but then there was a flooding. I had to go all the way back, turn around, find a new route. So it was a lot of improvising and allowing. For me, it became a reflection of my life. And it showed me, you might want to think you go this way, but then life happened and you have to go back, or you have to make a different turn that you didn't plan, and you have to go this route. So very often I looked at it and said, wow, that's like the journey of my life or someone else's life. We can't plan out, you have to stay open and flexible and trust. And often I have to remind myself to stay in that way, because life flows when I stay in surrendering and trusting, that when I manage my whole life.
I think that is just so true. And we need those reminders sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes life bops us on the head to say, are you sure you don't want to go this way instead? But so along the way, and you say there were angels along the way. So tell us more about that. And you have some beautiful stories of the people that you encountered. So you were alone and you had your pup.
Right.
And then there were people
who came.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my first encounter was Greg, who came to help me. Well, it's not true. It's not the first, but he's one of the ones that I like to share. That was when I encountered the grizzly bear with the 2 cubs.
Mm-hmm.
And since I did not know which way the grizzly bear went, north or south, west, I was really paralyzed and scared, moving forward, didn't know should I move forward, backwards. And I saw a pickup truck coming. And I howled the pickup truck, shaking and waving.
Take me on your
please
truck.
stop. And so he did. He stopped.
Yeah.
And during our drive through Alaska and into Yukon, he lost my trailer, which was Jackson's way
little
of
home.
transporting.
So
yes.
to paint that picture, you had a bike, and you had one of these little
dog trailers,
little
the
dog
big one.
trailers. You had equipment. You had clothing. What?
So
the other thing that you had mentioned last night is that along the way you had packed a number of things, but then you jettisoned. You realized I don't need those 10 pounds of this, and I don't need that. And so you had your bike that had broken spokes,
trailer,
and
yes.
the dog in the dog trailer, and then a flag. Tell us about the rest of the whole story there.
I had a welder build a special carrier on top of the dog trailer, so
Okay.
I can put my camping gear there, and a bear drum with Jackson's food and my food, which I never ate because I was so afraid of bears smelling and saying, "Oh, the kitchen is open," you know. So I had a large 8th memorial bicycle flag on my bicycle, which is 5 feet long by 3 feet wide, with a red ribbon on it, which was designed by a gentleman, Ken Sutton, and he did it in 1998 for his fiancée, Michelle, who passed of AIDS.
Mm.
So from there on, he wrote with the flag, and in 2000, he passed it on to me, and I've been riding with the flag. And then I had 4 saddlebags on the bike.
So that's how many pounds, because this is, and again, in the mountains and everything, which is not Florida. You had been training in the flat Florida,
Yes.
which is steamy, and that's a whole set of training. But to do mountain roads with so much poundage and weight and a whole nother being called your
Yes.
pup and all of that. Yeah.
And I didn't have low enough gears to get up a hill.
Okay.
I had to push it.
Yeah.
And I would count 50 steps, take a sip of water, or if I had the strength, 100 steps, had a sip of water, catch my breath, and then move on to the next 100 steps next. And some of the inclines were miles long, and it was a long push.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a long question. We're going to continue painting this picture because you were also a woman of a certain age. And you had mentioned you had
Not me.
not you. But I'm saying that because, again, people attach numbers
Yes.
and what you can or can't do. And that gets into what fear space is.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to be 60. Well, I couldn't do that.
Right.
Or I've had how many hip surgeries? I mean, you were a woman who had come physically, this physical adventure
Right.
already had a lot more to it before that.
Right. So I had 7 hip surgeries. My first one was with 2. The last one was with 54. And I started a bike ride when I was 59.
Fantastic.
Going on 60, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you just brave on through, or you didn't have the pain anymore because the surgeries helped you.
Right. Well, you
Or-
have paid so long that it becomes normal.
I see.
Yes.
I see. Oh my gosh.
It's a tolerance level.
A tolerance
Yeah,
level.
yeah.
So I just needed to kind of just get that out there. Just this is the visual of what is happening on that road,
Yeah.
on all of those byways and highways and back trails. So you were still in Alaska. You'd come across the bear, and then this
I
gentleman,
met
Greg.
Greg.
Yeah.
So we had to return. We had to drive back because we lost my trailer.
Oh, that's right. Your trailer
and he
hit
wanted
the road.
and he wanted to be home with his wife and kids, and that really delayed him.
Yeah.
So while we were in the car, I told him my story, and I would share about HIV/AIDS, what I'm writing for. And it was very personal and very intimate. So when he picked up, we found a trailer all beaten up and crooked and ripped. And
Wait, was Jackson in that trailer?
No, he was on my lap. He was on my lap. He was
Good.
not in a trailer.
Right.
And he was wondering why I didn't get mad, pissed off. And I told him, I said, when I made a commitment to this ride, that was something I wanted to leave behind.
Right.
And I wanted to really stand in trust and surrender. And he said, well, that's what I had to learn, a very hard way. So while we were driving, he told me his story. And he had completed 2 log cabins, finally. And finally, they produced some money for him and for the family. And he hired somebody to manage the 2 cabins by the lake. And they got flooded. And that person didn't call him in time. So it was a bad damage. So he met this person on the log cabin, and he was very, very angry. And he really got himself into a rage, where the more he talked about, the more he was pissed off with this person. And he hit the log cabin and punched the log cabin and was really angry. Well, his 5-year-old son was standing in the doorway, and he didn't see his son. His son was terrified of his father. He never saw his father this way. And when he looked at his son, he ran away from him. So now this man is sitting in the car, and tears rolling down his face. Of course, now I'm so moved by him, by his authentic sharing. And he said, that's when I made a commitment never to be that angry with, especially with somebody in my family or anybody else. He said there's different ways of handling. And from there on, we had amazing conversation, amazing connection. He did not make it home, so he rented a hotel room, and he invited me. You can stay in a campground in the cold, in the snow, or you can stay in my room and you have your own bed. So I chose the hotel room.
A night of a warm bed,
yes,
right.
yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. So very early on, people shared really intimate and personal things from their life that I said, I better pay attention. These people are giving me a gift, and also helping me, and I opened something up for them to share those things.
Oh, that's just beautiful. And I love that this is our humanity. It really
Yes, it
is. And again, we can sometimes forget, especially if we're sort of diving into the newses and all the things. And yes, there are some real horrible things, but then where are the humans in those scenarios that are still, we want to help each other. We just do.
And 2017 politically was some difficult
years. It was interesting time.
Yeah, interesting times, yeah. To see the humanity really gave me hope again, that we really can come together as a nation, that we can really work together as a country and support each other and be there for each other.
Right.
Without making wrong and pointing fingers, but really work together.
Perfect. I love that. It's why we're sitting here together.
Yeah.
People can have various opinions and even political whatevers, but when it comes down to it, can you see your fellow human being?
Right.
Right. And treat them with the respect as we all deserve.
Right.
Do you have any other nuggets and stories that you might want to share, either directly from the book or? Yeah. No, go ahead if you like.
I met so many amazing people, all different backgrounds, political backgrounds or supporters. And it was just nice to connect on the human level. So I had a gentleman, a mafia, I call him my mafia boss, because he was. And
but you didn't know that when you went, because you would just serendipitously encounter people and scenarios, or your road would take you somewhere. Right.
But if you're open to the possibility of that connection,
and then somebody drops into your lap.
Right. Yeah. So I was in Saskatchewan, And I was about 20, 30 kilometers away from a very historical site, prehistorical site, and scientists are still out there digging for dinosaurs. So I had dinner at the Denny's. He was sitting there, of course, now all day alone on a bike. I seek the connection with somebody,
Sure.
conversation. So I smiled at him. He smiled back, and we started a conversation. And he said, "You should go and see this place. It's really a historical site. You have to go
with the
and see
land
it."
and the dinosaurs and all that. Yeah.
And you can see it looks very historic, very prehistoric. So when I found out how far away it is, I said, no, thank you. I mean, I just rode, I don't know how many miles, and I'm not getting back on my bike today. He said, "You meet me in 1 hour. I come and pick you up and I drive you." All right. So we went out there. That's when I also encountered the rattlesnake. And I said, "Can we please do this, in the car? I prefer driving. I don't want to watch out for drugs and me and seeing where the rattlesnakes are."
Yeah.
And rattlesnakes are protected there. So they're not hunted. They are protected and they are in the park. So while we were driving through the park and driving over there, he told me his life story, his wife and kids, and there were 10 kids and a family. He was an inventor. He was an engineer first, an inventor. His invention became on the stock market, was used worldwide. And his father got involved politically. And his first son was connected to a motorcycle gang and was the one that brought the money in if you were late paying your bills. And all the kids started working for his company. And so his job became, in the end, the money launderer. So he was an accountant and had to make sure the money from here went to there and there. And I told him, I said, "You were the money laundry guy." And he said, "No way. You did." And the guys would be killed. They tried to arrest his brother, the oldest one. And I was like, "Did you use this in your book?" I said, "Your story is way too good. I'm using it." So yeah, his brother was looked for killing a couple of people.
Oh my.
Yeah, so yeah, he was serious. And in the end, he gave me his card. He put down his cell phone number and he said, "If you're ever in trouble, you call me, I help you." And I was like, wow, I mean, it's great to have a backup, but if I call him, what do I owe him? I was like, "Oh, I'm not calling."
What does that mean?
Yeah, right. So
that's adorable. Well,
yeah.
but that's really magical in its own way. And then I'm sure yet another angel appeared when you did need some help.
Yes.
Or assistance. Did
Yes.
your bike break down?
Yes.
Did your body break down? Did
Yes.
you find times that you rested? This was a 6-month journey.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, you didn't plan out, okay, I'm going to ride 20 miles or 30 miles or 100 miles a day. Some days, did you stay in a place for a long time and kind of rest and heal and then move on? Tell me more
Yes.
about that too. And I think you had a cross the water journey when you
With
went
the ferry, yes.
with the ferry.
Yes.
So you were walking the bicycle, trucks, trains. You had other modes of transportation here and there.
Yes, mostly cars and then the ferry just from one state to the other
Yeah,
state.
yeah.
Yes. What was the question?
It had to do with, did you find places of rest? Did you try to map out X number of miles a day, or on that calling you said, okay, now I'm going to be here for a little longer than I maybe had expected?
Right. So yes, the mileage I never knew. I would plan I would think I could do 50 miles, but some of the terrain was so tough.
Mm-hmm.
The first day I did 22 miles. I thought I would make it much further. I couldn't. I was so steep, so cold, and so windy, I didn't make it.
Right.
Other days, I was surprised I did 70, 80 miles, and it was much better terrain. The wind was in the back. It was wonderful. There's one family I wanted to just briefly mention.
Mm-hmm.
I got off the ferry, and I rode my bicycle into town. I didn't know where the nearest motel is, and I tried to stay close to the road. I don't want to get too far away from the road that I'm on. And there was an ice cream truck. So I went over to a lady and I said, what's the nearest motel? And she said, oh, come on, I show you. So she did and took a napkin and gave direction. And in the meantime, I told them a little bit about my journey, where I came from. I took the ferry. I'm looking for a motel, and I'm heading out to Key West. So she folded it, she explained a little bit, and then I had my map in the hand to take off. So I'm ready to take off with Jackson. And just as I leave and I'm back on the road, I heard this screaming, somebody screaming after me, ma'am, come back. So I turned around, went back, and she said, and they were very religious. And she said, God spoke to my husband and me, and we were told we have to bring you to our house. So I make you a new map, and you come to our house. So sure enough, and it was way further away. So this one was like 7 or 8 miles. This one's 11 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. So I did. I went over to the house. As soon as I rode into the street, the 2 little boys came on their bicycle, escorting me over to the house.
Oh.
And she was on disability. She was a teacher and had some heart problems. And they couldn't have been any more generous. And the boys and us and I exchanged pictures and stories from my journey and their stories, from school and what they're doing in school. And it was such an amazing exchange. And she thanked me for coming to her house. And she said, I'm so glad I trust in God, because God brought you to our family. And my kids can't get enough from your stories, And it was just an amazing experience to be with that family.
That's beautiful. Were you there for one night or longer?
1 night.
1 night.
And then the next night, I went over to a couple that I met on the ferry who said, if you're in, I forgot the name right now. When you're in this town, you come visit us.
Mm-hmm.
So I called and said, I'm really close. I think I can make it today. So I did. I made it to the house, and I was welcomed, and they made dinner, and the next day was my birthday. So Gwen, the wife, asked me, what time in the morning do you want to leave? And I said, tomorrow is my birthday. And she said, oh, no problem. You sleep in, and then that will be okay. So I woke up. They had a little birthday cake.
Oh.
They had a little banner, happy birthday. And then for dinner, they took me out on a lake, and we had a nice birthday dinner.
That's beautiful.
That was amazing.
That's
just
beautiful.
Amazing.
So now May into October, so essentially the summer months, when you came down into the States, how did you find that bit of travel? Did you find a difference in terms of who may or may not want to take you in, the roadways, some of the logistics? What happened in the difference between up north and then along Canada, and then you started making your way by the Great Lakes, and then you made your way. I think I asked you last night, how did you find your map? And you said it was about the rattlesnakes. You did not want to have in their season of waking up. You didn't want to be in southern states with the rattlesnakes.
That was in Alberta. I had to make a decision. Do I go east on the transatlantic, the Canadian transatlantic highway, and drive on a highway with tractor trailers and cars going 70, 80, 90 miles right next to me, and the whole bike is shaking? Or do I continue through a really nice scenery country road, which is prairie, cowboy country, and lots of rattlesnakes? So I decided I do the highway and deal with the trucks and cars. So
that seemed a little more safe to you than the prairie roads.
I encountered the grizzly, cougar, and that rattlesnake, and was like, oh, that's enough. That's all I can deal with right now.
That's right. Oh, you had a cougar that whipped right by you too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Do you have maybe one more passage that you'd like to share along the way? If there was something towards the end, or maybe something along where it kind of incorporates where you are, where you're headed, and where the book was born, actually. I don't know if you mentioned that last night, that you realized that you were going to be writing a book because of everything that was gifted to you along the way. You weren't planning on writing a book, but there it was.
Yeah.
And perhaps part of a culmination. Is there something that was really, and now I have these words to say because all these people have things to say.
Yes.
And of course, we know the people with the AIDS who may or may not be here to voice their own stories.
Right.
So somehow, where is it that your journey is where did it take you finishing your trip? And I bet you there were a lot of people who were eager to welcome you back home. So tell us about that, how it was ending. How did that feel as it was ending and reacclimating after a big journey like that?
The reacclimation part was tough.
Yeah.
I went in a depression.
Yeah.
Because I missed the road. I missed that freedom, that independence. Suddenly I was back in a normal life and not knowing what to do. I quit my job. I had a very well-paid job. I had a new car. I had a condo I rented out, and I was still rented out, so I couldn't move in, and I didn't know what to do. And I went out on the road again, but that's another story.
But I love that, though. Did you literally just kind of go, I'm out the door again?
Yes, pretty much.
That makes me good because I've had trips like that.
Yeah.
I had a major thing, and I literally walked in my house and went, okay, I can't be here right now.
Yeah.
And I walked out the door again. I didn't go very far, but I understand exactly that moment.
Yeah. Too many changes happened within that. The life I had didn't fit anymore.
Right.
And there's a couple of things that I really got was that trust and surrender. Then there was the discomfort or not having comfort. And I got that when you live in comfort, there's no growth occurring. And when you have that discomfort and you're challenged with it, that's where the growth occurs. You know, if you're happy in a relationship, I mean, I'm not saying look for trouble in your relationship or in your life, but if you have something that's challenging you, that's where your growth occurs. It doesn't occur when you sit comfortable at home. So, and I like that. I really like that because it pulled me forward. It called me out into action. It called me forward. And that was something that was missing when I got back to. Let's see, what else?
Well, but I love what you just, go ahead.
The AIDS flag. So I have been riding I didn't ride after the big ride, the 6,000-mile ride. I just returned from the Smart Ride in Miami, which was their last ride. And the ride was 20 years. They existed for 20 years and have been on riding for 20 years and raised money and awareness for 5 local AIDS agencies or HIV agencies in Florida. And I have participated right from the beginning. And when I found out it was the last one, I was like, that flag has to be on the last AIDS ride. So I went.
This was more recently?
I was in November of this year. So we went down to Miami, participated as a crew. I didn't ride because it was so short notice, but the flag was there. And because the flag always represented the memory of those we have lost, it represented hope for those who are infected with HIV, AIDS, that they are not forgotten, that we are out there fighting and riding and raising awareness. And then it also stood for inspiration, especially on the road when other riders saw the flag, that they say, oh, the flag is still out, going over the bridge, oh, I can do that too. And so the flag was on the right. And then just a couple of days ago, I went to the World AIDS Museum, and it's the final chapter, and donated the flag to the World AIDS Museum. And I think it had the perfect home for the AIDS Memorial Bicycle flag. And it's a closure, and I'm at peace with it.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
That's very beautiful. Yeah. I've got two questions at the same time. One kind of circles back to something that you were saying, and even that first storyline where in the very beginning of your trip with the bear, you were basically just newly out the door. What called you to just keep on going? And how many times did you have moments along the way that you said, I really could pack it in. I've done enough. That's okay. I'm turning back, or I'm not doing this whole thing.
Yeah.
Did you have those moments? And I'll call the little tester moments. And what I think you answered already, you were called forward.
Yes. Of course I had this moment, especially when I was riding Denali National Park. I mean, it is so steep. And very early May, very, very cold, windy. I pushed that bike up these hills, and I was dealing with myself and saying, one more turn, I drop this bike. Okay, one more, and then I really drop it. I will take Jackson.
Because you had
and
broken
I walk
spokes,
home.
right?
Oh
This
my
was,
God,
right,
yes.
you had equipment issues, the whole
Yes,
thing.
Yes.
Really tested.
So, but I think I may have had a problem with my hips when I was born, but God blessed me with thick hair and enthusiasm and determination. So that really got me through my determination, yeah. And to know that, I want to get home and I want to ride for the cause. And the cause really was to have a cure by 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't just riding for something. It was really a vision that I stood in. And if you have a vision, it's really powerful to stand in those vision and share your vision with somebody else.
Right.
And be careful of those who say, no, no, no.
That's right.
Because they have their own fears, not because they are jealous. It's because they really love you and don't want anything to happen to you, which happened to me, where people shared that, no, don't do this. You can get raped. A car can kill you. Bear rips you apart and eats you. Yeah, I mean, and all the stories. And I, of course, on the beginning was very irritable. Like, who are you? What are you telling me? And then I got that they really come from love.
Right.
And as soon as I got that, I could let it go and say, I'm not accepting your fear. I do what I need to.
Oh, you're right. Thank you for loving me this much.
Yeah.
And
I still have to do this.
I'm still going to go. Right.
Right.
I'm
and
still
the
going to go.
enthusiasm was so huge. When you feel that enthusiasm inside, I couldn't stop anymore.
And that's that true calling. So that's that fire
calling.
within
That's
that,
right.
that then leads the way.
Right.
And those are the best adventures, really.
Right. That is.
Now, so we can kind of start rounding out. We were talking about the AIDS community and the research and looking for an actual cure. Where are you feeling that part is happening in terms of, and I do know I have a personal friend of mine. I never thought I'd see him past 1995, and he is still living and thriving. And his markers technically are cured. But do people say that word? I would love to say that they should or they could, but they don't. And let's just tap a little bit on that piece of it.
The little knowledge I have it here. Yes. So
this kind of goes back to community and where is the current flag flying? Like, where is the current need? I'll put it that way. Where's the current need?
I think the need is still research, and the medication that is out is helping those who have AIDS. And then there's also, and I'm not sure the name of it right now, of the medication people can take to prevent them from getting HIV. The need is, there's still a stigma and access to testing in different communities. We would be surprised. It's not just in a gay community.
Right.
It is now young African Americans, Native Americans are affected, senior citizens, so people don't know if they are affected. And there should, outreach, education, and access to testing. And then proceeds of the book are going to MFA, which is the Foundation for AIDS Research. And I choose the foundation because they stood in the same vision of having a cure by 2020, which didn't happen, but that doesn't mean you can't have a vision. And So they're still continuing with research for cure for AIDS.
Beautiful. And so tell us where people can find you or where your next level is. And is that via the book, via other work that you're doing? What is the rest of your vision, and how would you like other listeners to help?
Well, they can help their local agencies, HIV agencies,
Mm-hmm.
or look for the national one, which is the one I know is AMFA, which is the Foundation for AIDS Research. And then if they're interested in the book, they can get the book on the internet, Amazon, or they can go on my website, which is www.uli, this is ULI, journey.org. O-R-G.
Beautiful. And again, the book is called Uli's Journey, Angels Along the Way. What a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. And I just see the movie in my head of the picture that you painted of all these different adventures and the landscape and the beautiful roadways and the animals, cougars and rattlesnakes and all. Uli, thank you.
Thank you. It was a delight to be here. Thank you.
Thanks again. And thanks everybody for listening. Please like, review, and share this podcast. And if you'd like to find us and reach out and be part of the conversation, you can email us at podcast@lastingconversations.com. Find us at Facebook and Instagram and YouTube at Lasting Conversations. We're Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything.